Hi, I'm Mike Mormon, CEO and founder of ERP Suites. Today I have a very special guest, Manuel Nera, our Vice President of Product and Advisory Services. Today we have a very important topic to discuss. Just like in any software implementations, what does it really take to make it successful, right? There's definitely have to be certain elements that you have to prepare for in order to make really any software implementation, but especially scannability in our barcode software.
Absolutely. And first off, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to talk about this key topic, as you said. Let's start off with a few examples of elements that are important for successful customer projects when implementing systems such as barcode read solutions. Number one, communication of pain points to the software vendor. It's important for a vendor to understand what are the customer's pain points, what are the challenges they're having today, to understand what needs to get resolved in the kind of to-be state with a new system.
Question on that, I think interesting enough when we go through there, sometimes those aren't well documented, the pain points. So I think doing a tour of the operations, right, warehouse and stuff really helps because we really get to see things in actions, right? So I think if you're not looking at that, you should at least have a definite walk through there and talking to key individuals on site, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes they don't always tell you their pain points, but when somebody's there, a consultant, we always hear the long list that comes out, and the reaction is from the other side is, I never knew that, right? So it's always good to have that and getting everybody involved into figuring out the pain points.
Bingo. I was just going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Sometimes when a customer's in their business and it becomes just habit, right? They've been in it so far, you lose the kind of forest for the trees type of effect.
Right.
And they don't understand, they don't see it, right? Because they've been dealing with it so much. So that's where expertise and industry expertise, J.D. Edwards expertise that we have on staff can come in with a fresh set of eyes and sometimes immediately pick out what those pain points are, talk about it with the customer, and they're like, hadn't noticed that before, right? So that's part of it, right? But it's a communication.
Or it's asking the question a different way.
Absolutely.
Or asking a great question that maybe wasn't asked before, and it really kind of gets somebody maybe thinking or saying, yeah. So, no, absolutely. And I think second one, I think you're going to talk through is a little bit about expectations, because that's huge too, right?
Expectations is huge, right? Not only from the software itself, but also from the vendor. What are the expectations that the customer has, right? Are they looking for someone to just parachute in, implement the software and leave, or are they looking for something more? And usually it's the latter, Mike,
right.
Where customers want a holistic kind of long-term relationship with a customer, and not all vendors are looking for that. Right. Or dedicated to that, right? And unfortunately, sure, many customers find out about that after they've signed a contract and they're stuck with the software and no support, right? No real tangible proactive support. So yeah, it is key that the customers communicate that early. And for us, we ask that. Right. We ask that because we want to know what are the customer's expectations in this space.
And I think, too, to kind of maybe just hit a quick point on that is some of the things I've heard of past implementations of other vendors is how well J.D. Edwards expertise do they really have on staff, right? Sometimes the people might believe, well, this product's made for J.D. Edwards, but the people who are implementing it might not have that real well in-depth experience of J.D. Edwards because they also support 10 other ERPs for that product line. So making sure they really have that in-depth expertise too within the vendor.
Absolutely.
Would definitely be helpful in there. So this one I think is always an interesting one. It's business process. It's documentation is the word, right? When we always ask customers that, right? I think we get that look like, really? You want to document it, right? So I'll let you maybe go a little bit more into that, why that's really important to have those documented.
It's interesting, as you mentioned, Mike, right? This came up too when I was, in the years that I was at Oracle as well, when customers come visit us and talk to us, they would talk about the challenges they were having, and we would ask, well, what are your business processes? And sometimes they couldn't verbalize that, right? Because there were different interpretations of the business process. So documenting your business process, one, is very important to establish what is the expected business process supposed to run like.
Right.
And then it takes out kind of some of the variations and the interpretations of how that gets run. And it's tantamount not just for the business to have that, but also when you're implementing a system and to understand how it fits in the overall process, right? And yeah, maybe there's situations too in that kind of documentation process, communication process with your software vendor, that you identify some opportunities that, again, they hadn't seen before. And maybe or maybe not, it's required to address those as part or before the implementation, but it's raising awareness, right? This is another way that we add value to our customers, is not just implementing the software, but by kind of understanding their business process as if we were an extension of their team.
Right. No, absolutely. I think this next point is kind of an interesting one too, and I think all these, right, and you get in the sales cycle, I've been involved in a lot of sales cycle, is return on investment, right, expectations. So I know a lot of times in sales, not saying that us sales guys would ever do this, but might inflate the ROI and how quickly to achieve that ROI. But obviously having those missed expectations around ROI can create a lot of havoc, maybe not to the actual software, but to the actual project itself.
Right. No, and it's important, again, right, to be level set, to make sure that we're defining together with the customer what are the definitions of success. And sometimes, Mike, it's not a singular thing, right? It may be multi-phased kind of ROI, right? They want a short-term, a mid-term, and long-term return on their investment. So what is it, right? What is it? That's the thing we want to work towards. And that helps us make sure we're in lockstep together working towards that goal, right? Not just implementing the software, but what are the tangible values that you're seeing, and having those be metrics driven as opposed to abstract type of.
Yeah, nothing worse than having a CFO that's been told some unrealistic expectation of ROI and it can't be delivered, right? That's not good for the customer, it's not good for the vendor either, right, to get in that.
You don't want to be surprised.
So, I think there's a couple other points. One, maybe tee up for you, maybe talking about the delivery model a little bit. I mean, there's different ways of this, but maybe touch just a little bit more on that.
And it exists, right? It exists in any software deployment effort, project, right? Is how does the customer want this to be delivered, right? The solution, the software be delivered. And an old school way of thinking was always big bang type of like roll it out everywhere with every business process and good luck, right? Making it work at the test at the end.
Been a part of a few of those projects.
Exactly.
Battle scars.
I think we all went through those, right? In some kind of pain or another. But it's important to know that nowadays we have options, right? In terms of the software are built more flexibly so that we can adapt to what the customer needs, right? Do they want to roll it out for one division first? Do they want to roll out a subset of the scanning business processes to get that going, get the users understanding, the value of a barcode reading solution and its user interfaces, whatnot? We can do any of that. We can slice it up and whatnot. But we want to understand what the customer wants. What are they looking for?
Right.
If they are looking for a big bang, there's ways, very smart ways of doing big bang, and there's very, not recommended ways. So that's why it's important to have that communication along that front as well.
And the last point you and I were talking about before this, which is a very interesting point, because I think this gets left out of a lot of conversations, especially in here, is really the support piece of it, right? Not many people think of this as an implementation of this, right? It's always the last thing that somebody thinks about is, oh great, now we're live, now what kind of deal, right? Maybe touch a little bit more on support as well.
Yeah, no, it's very key because many vendors will talk about support and saying, hey, okay, here's your project, it got implemented successfully, good luck. If you need us, call this 1-800 number, right?
Right.
But it's so much more than that, right? How do they expect the customer to engage? What kind of information should they provide? If they have different types of issues, what kind of information should they share, but also who should they contact? All that is something that customers need to be, educated on so that they can be, use the right channels to reach out, number one. Number two, support doesn't start once the software is live and running, right? Support is part of the implementation process, right? So engagement from the support team from those early cycles establishes that rapport, that engagement, right? And a lot of vendors are not focused on that. We like to engage early to establish that close customer relationship, like I said earlier, over the long haul.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So great points, right? Things that, educating our customers, and we do that a lot within there. I want to switch just real quick. Maybe we'll keep this kind of brief. Maybe we'll give two examples here of actually our customers who've been successful implementing scalability. Maybe we talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
Each one of the two projects that we've had. Maybe we can talk through those. Maybe give a little experience, and maybe we can give our customer a taste of what success.
Absolutely. I'll start with one of our early customers, because it's important to know for listeners today that even when our product was early in its life cycle, the architecture facilitated us to do things very, very quickly. So one of our earlier customers that adopted scalability, we didn't have a whole lot of library flows in our collection, yet the use of Orchestrator really allowed us to accelerate development and delivery of new flows that the customer needed us to build out. So why do I say this, right? Because we were able to meet their very kind of high expectations on the delivery timeline, while still having to develop some core components. And that's important to realize, that is, if customers have specific needs, today we have a very large library of pre-existing flows that are leveraged for the implementations and accelerating. But if a customer has a specific need that's to their business that is not a core business flow in our library, we can develop it very quickly because of the architecture. So that's an important one for that particular customer. There's another situation I want to highlight that's important, is going back to kind of the overall relationship with the customer, right? We had a situation with another project where they were struggling really in terms of how they should solve an inefficiency they had in their warehouse, in terms of how they were receiving product. And they were really kind of stuck again, right, in terms of how, what was a best practice for implementing an improved receipt process. And our industry expertise came into play. The folks that we have that have been decades and decades of expertise in implementing warehousing systems and in the industry were able to come in and suggest some alternatives they hadn't even pondered. So that in of itself, right, drove a successful project. And it's important to know, right, that having product expertise is one thing, having technical is another thing, having JD Edwards is another thing, as well as industry. That combination of skill set that we have at ERP Suites is very important for customer success.
Yeah, and maybe I'll leave off our audience here with one of the quotes we received from Dayton Lamino, our customer who did implement this. And Barb Lips is a friend of mine, and we've worked for a long time. But she's the CIO there, and she was in a review meeting after we implemented scalability there, right? I think her quote went somewhere. This is the first meeting in years I heard we did not ship any incorrect parts last month. First time ever, right? And not just because of the software, but like you said, it was because of our expertise, our industry expertise, our JD Edwards expertise in there. So real change, right? Real success, real business improvements that they have. So real cost savings that they realize. So, hey, I really do appreciate, this is great information, right? Anything we can do to help our customers with their implementation, whether that's scalability or something else. I mean, these are really, really good insights, what you need to do. So, and you can't really skip any, can you?
Nope, you cannot. They're all valuable components, right, of the equation to success, right? And that's ultimately what we strive for, right, for our customers. So hopefully this was helpful for everyone, and they can leverage it, in a future project with us.
No, I really appreciate you being here, and look forward to the next time we can have another chat. Thanks.
Good. Thanks, Mike.